Stay in the field, oh, stay in the field. Stay in the field until the war is ended.
Well, good afternoon. We're so glad for all 100 children with a tune in one more again for zooming in on sustainability. This year, the Queen Quet head upon the body of the Gullah Geechee Nation. So glad that 100 children taught not robbery for tuning we one more again. This year, day, we going to crack we teeth about Black women, the founding farmers. And before we do this year, we going to do what we always do upon this year broadcast every Wednesday. We going to take a moment of silence for we ancestors who going to work this your land, right here in the Gullah Geechee Nation. And thing like that. That be there, all doing this year, all in this year soil, that is soil and thing like that. Red of us, of a center and thing, and then baby, waving a shack, with a midwife and thing, hold them and hand them over to some week, and red of us, them one were going down the river, down the creek, where they now give us sea. So let we take a moment of silence for all them this your day. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. We're so glad that all 100 children to tune in with we one more again. And for all the Wadia with we this year day, I just want to say happy month to all 100 children. Oh, yes, yeah. This year the we last day, but that means that we have to stop celebrate who we be as the thing in the world. Because plenty thing to going on because of we. And you know one thing, it wouldn't have no family if it ain't had we any. Okay, then I want to know how them children can get in the world without the any. All right, so we taught them not robbery, that we can make sure that this year day we crack we teeth pun we show about what been going on with so much of we ancestors and red of us with the one will work the land. Now, even now, plenty of people can see right here where I be in this your land of the Gullah Geechee. You see this here? What they right behind me? Y'all see that? Right there? That me. Right there, still the work this your land with my ancestors in MBD. From way back on in the 1600 and thing like that. They be there. Some been ya, from Centelna, even in the 1500. And from daddy on to this your time now, it been to take a stand and it been to work this your land. So plenty of time when people deal Jonah, especially this your time of year, the chucky hand down and Saul and thing like that, oh, it most like we could have yet it did it right with we, the cracky teeth, a sing and shout right there where we to be. As every seed drop in the soil and thing like that. Yeah, chilla. You feel it soul. You feel it soul what did it? And that thing, it warm your heart, warm on the spirit and thing like that, and give on a strength for carry on. So this your day, when I was study about, and crack with people plenty thing this your month. But I thought I'm not Robbie for end this your month, but take on for a journey inside the outdoors for true. With somebody else who I know is soul, feel that fire from the soil like I've been to do. So now, where I'm here on the Sea Islands in the Gullah Geechee Nation, and I'm Queen Quet, chiefess and head of state for the Gullah Geechee Nation, I'm not always here. Many times I journey around the world. I've been to all 50 states. Well, I'll never forget the evening that I was in upstate New York City. New York, New York. That place, I went north of there, got there to NYC and took that journey on up to farmland out in the country. Most people don't think of New York and think about farms. They think about NYC, the Big Apple. They think about the heart of Manhattan, the skyscrapers and everything, as they say. But they don't think about the fact that that is an island as well. It's the island of Manhasset. Many people forget that. And they forget that African people were enslaved to work on the island of Manhasset, the same way they were on these sea islands from Jacksonville, North Carolina to Jacksonville, Florida. So when we talk about being Black women who are farmers, we are talking about a legacy, an ancestral legacy being carried on. And so, just like others celebrate their founding fathers, we're celebrating our founding farmers, who were the ladies that left us with a legacy. That my guest today is continuing to carry on and was doing it when I met her all those years ago in that farm country in New York. When she came out for Yeti Me and things like that at Crack Matipa, who we be down here in the Gullah Geechee Nation. And so her soul is on fire. People know her by that name because Soul Fire Farm is where you normally find her. And I was surprised that since spring was breaking, that I could even get her to come in from out there with her hands in the soil. So I welcome to the broadcast Sister Leia Pennyman, who many of you are familiar with because you might have Leia's book. All right. If you don't have it, trust me, I ain't mad if you go ahead and order it right now. All right. While we're even on the broadcast. So, Sister Leia, how honey be? What going on up there? All the way north of we. What going on, sis?
Thank you so much. It is a deep honor to be here with you all. And thank you for beginning by reminding us that we are here because of our ancestors. And it's a blessing to know you. And it is a blessing that we also have a connection in that my grandparents, great grandparents, and great great grandparents, and generations before that were in South Carolina toiling the lands and only just recently have come north. So I feel a kinship with the landscape, with the geography there, with my ancestors' blood in the soil there, not too far from where y'all are taking care of Mother Earth yourself. So thank you for having me.
You can take the gal out the country, but you can't take the country out the gal. So that thing be in the DNA. That's what's going on. Don't think I am. I. And I remember the first night that we met, that was the first thing you said when I said, peace, sister, what's your name? And once you told me, you said, my people are from South Carolina, because I wanted to know what brought you out to hear me speak. And so it was such an honor. And then to hear your name over the years, just growing all the more with this fire you done lit up there, and I know it gets cold. So that fire, I ain't mad at you for having the Soul Fire Farm. But tell my audience, when did you actually begin Soul Fire Farm and what was your inspiration? Was it your ancestors or what made you decide to do this?
Yes, and so my relationship with the earth as sacred goes back actually to childhood. While I wouldn't have defined it as I will start a farm, I mean, I grew up with my two siblings between my dad's rural small New England town and my mom's spot in Boston. And when we were with my dad, we were the only brown kids in our school. So to say the teasing was relentless would be an understatement. And we found all our refuge in the forest. We thought that Grandmother Pine was our grandmother, literally. I mean, we thought we invented a religion called Mother Nature, where we made offerings and made praise songs. So I would say that was my ancestors letting me know that I belonged to something.
Yeah.
And as soon as I was old enough to get a paid job, it was farming from age 16 up through college. It was always my summer job. And what made us start Soulfire in particular, aside from that inevitability of like one day we'll be on the land, is that my spouse Jonah and I were living in the south end of Albany, New York, in a neighborhood under food apartheid. And we couldn't get any vegetables for our children. We couldn't get fruits for our children. There was no supermarket, no farmer's market, no land. And, we worked it out by walking over 2 miles to a different neighborhood where you could pick up these things. And when our neighbors found out that we both knew how to farm, they started half teasing, half joking, saying, oh, when are you going to start the farm for us? When are you going to start the farm for the people? But we didn't take that as a joke. And we started looking for lands outside Albany so that we could indeed grow those fresh foods and bring them to our neighbors who they and their children very much deserve to have those ancestral foods, those whole foods. And that was the spark that lit the fire that has grown into what it is now.
Outstanding. And you have had this fire spread all over the place, because as soon as I announced that you were coming on that show, people were tweeting. They were like, "What? This is gonna be hot." Queen Quet and Leia Pennyman. Yeah, this is gonna be hot. And folks are ready. And it's interesting because I know a lot of those folks probably are somewhere within this list that I found in your book about Black Indigenous-led organizations working on food, land, and freedom. And I know within the book you have things that no one would expect by just looking at a cover of a book that says the word farming as the top word on the page. They wouldn't automatically jump and think, well, I'm going to find out about, working for freedom and all of this. They probably were just expecting the section where the recipes are and the pretty pictures of working in the field. But you have also youth declarations in here. You have dealing with trauma. You have rooted in community, and what you just said shows that those roots have taken hold, but not just with Soul Fire Farm, but with this whole list. What made you include a list like this about Black Indigenous land organizations working on food, land, and freedom?
Well, because Mama Fannie Lou Hamer put it best. She said, if you have 400 quarts of greens and gumbo soup canned for the winter, no one can push you around or tell you what to say or do. And we see that in this time of multiple pandemics. We see the panic as the grocery store shelves empty and the supply chains are disrupted. And people don't have on their minds voting. They don't have on their minds organizing. They have on their minds, how am I going to get toilet paper, flour, cleaner, these types of things. So we have to remember that our freedom is fragile. And if we actually do not have the means of production in our own communities, we are going to be at the whims and vagaries of corporations who do not have our best interests in mind at all. So I think that growing our own food, being on land, is inexorably connected to freedom. There's a reason our ancestors, 1865, right? Reverend Garrison Fraser met with the
Go ahead.
Met with the Union Army General Sherman, and Sherman said, "Okay, what y'all think about post-slavery? What do you need?" And they said, and I quote, "What we need are homes and the ground beneath them, so that we can plant fruit trees, concerning which we can say to our children, these are ours."
Absolutely.
Freedom and land. So that list of organizations is because a lot of times people don't understand that connection, or they think that, oh, but Black people aren't interested in farming. They're not interested in the environment. Well, here's, 100 organizations that very much are. So please give them your money. Please give them your resources.
Right.
So we can do the thing that we were born to do. That's why.
Exactly. And as you mentioned with Garrison Fraser, I'm often teaching people about the fact that 40 acres and a mule, that statement that we love to use in the Black community, is tied to the Gullah Geechee Nation, because that conversation with Garrison Fraser and the other preachers, there were 20 preachers that were in the church in Savannah that had this conversation. A lot of people only think of Sherman, they think of Sherman's march where he burnt everything down. They didn't realize what he built up, because after that conversation came Special Field Order number 15 that issued all the abandoned rice fields from Charleston, South Carolina, southward to Fernandina. Fernandina is Amelia Island and Fernandina Beach, Florida, one of the southernmost parts of the Gullah Geechee Nation. And then 30 miles inland to the St. Johns River shall be given to the Negroes. And also has in there that no white shall dwell herein. So it's really interesting that here after all this time, we got movie houses with Brother Spike Lee and all that, whose roots he learned come up out of Georgia, actually naming his company 40 Acres and a Mule, because that was still a search for a lot of Black folks, is to still get the land, to have the land. But like you said, it's not just having the land, it's about freedom and then also having food security on that land. So that's why they wanted the ground beneath their feet, to plant the fruit trees, because hey, they had enough bitterness in life. They wanted something sweet first off, but they definitely wanted something that would be fruitful, that would multiply. And fortunately, many Gullah Geechees, y'all see the picture behind me, yes, that's grown right here on St. Helena Island, smack dab in the middle of that Sherman's area, as they like to call it more often than not. And we're still here. The Gullah Geechee Nation is the exact area from Jacksonville, North Kakalaki to Jacksonville, Florida. It encompasses all of that area that 40 acres and a mule is supposed to be given, as we say, Geechee and things like that. But he ain't such a thing with going down. Our ancestors bought it at auctions during the Civil War. Civil War wasn't over when this conversation was happening. Civil War wasn't over. And yet our ancestors bought the land. And we ain't going to even talk about what happened after they assassinated Lincoln and why people still looking for their 40 acres and their mule. But what I do want to go back to is you mentioned Fannie Hamer, who I was going to mention as well. Great minds think alike, because you have one of her great quotes, because she had many of them. She said, the time has come now when we're going to have to get what we need ourselves. We may get a little help here and there, but in the main, we are going to have to do it ourselves. Now, when you mentioned the pandemic, or like you say, multiple pandemics, or some just call it straight up the plandemic that has gone on, we see that we have to do it ourselves. And I'm hearing the song in my head right now. Sisters are doing it for themselves. And I saw a lot of sisters all of a sudden who used to be all done up, go ahead, dress down last year when they started figuring around the springtime, hey, this thing ain't just ending. I ain't gonna be able to just go outside. Some of these stores is closed, don't look like they're gonna reopen in my community. They develop in food deserts where they weren't. The food deserts only got drier. What am I going to do? So I'm going to have to do this myself. I'm going to have to make sure I and my family can eat and my community can eat ourselves. So how did Soul Fire Farms get affected by the pandemic? Did you see more people coming to you, and were they coming to buy? Were they coming for tea from? Were they coming to learn, or what? What did you see actually happening? Were people trying to do this for themselves, or were they still waiting for somebody to give them something?
Yes to all of that. Yes to all of that. So, I mean, as you know, the farmers were essential workers. So we just kept going. We didn't get that sabbatical that some people got for the pandemic. But I will say we witnessed a few changes. But the number one in the Black community was people wanting to grow for themselves, which I celebrate. So I'll give you an example of this. We have an urban gardening program called Soul Fire in the City, founded by my colleague Amani Olugbala, and is now run by Kiani Conley Wilson. And we maybe would build a handful of gardens every year. And as soon as the pandemic hit, the waiting list for these gardens, we built almost 50 gardens last year. And when I say built, I don't mean we just drop a box off. I mean, we build the raised beds, we bring the compost, we consult with them about garden design, we bring the seeds, the plants, we train them how to grow their own food, connect them with community, follow-up visits, like a whole package of we are going to help you be successful growing your own food. And then a waiting list. And same thing again this year. Another example of that is our voicemail and email was flooded with how-to questions of growing food. What do I do about this bug? What do I do about a 3-year-old seed? This and that. So I started the Ask a Sister Farmer show, which it was every week. Now it's every month, a Friday call-in show to ask Black farmers questions like this because we couldn't keep up with the email volume.
Wow, I didn't know about that show. That's interesting. I'd have been sending folks over there to you because they kept inundating me. I didn't know. Go ahead.
Well, I know you're busy, but I had you on my list to see if you could come be one of the experts on the show because people call in with all these questions. Right. And it's a place to send them to say, well, just hold your question and come see us on Friday because we couldn't keep up. So those are a couple examples. But yes, we used to sell some vegetables and give some away. We did a sliding scale program, so people who have more money would pay more, who had less pay less. So many people in our community had nothing during this time that we shifted to all the food being given away to people who are very low income and low wealth who are impacted. So we have a couple of years of doing that. And again, big waiting list. So we're trying to get other farms in on the program where we say, if you have a little something extra, throw it in our box because we know the community members who need this food. We have a trusting relationship. So if you want to give us your surplus produce, we'll make sure it gets to people, not making people stand in line at some food bank or fill out some forms. Right. It's delivered to their house in a beautiful box.
Oh, that's
with
really
dignity.
Nice. Wow, that is beautiful because it's interesting. We had a similar situation here of course, where people were hitting me up left, right, left, any way they could find you, social media, whatever, asking you about things. Is this a weed? Is this the right veggie? If I plant this, how long will it take? You know, all that kind of stuff. But then also just the food delivery, as you said, because we did have food banks. We also have our local CDC that was serving the community hot food and food that they could take home and cook themselves on another day or put in the freezer. So we have been blessed here. But then folks who would come and bring stuff to me, like, okay, Queen, I'm like, wait, I just donated and y'all trying to bring me stuff. Yeah, but we don't give away all the stuff to other people. And you know, we want to make sure you and your mama them got stuff. So they would deliver it to the door. And it's so interesting that you say that, because I never even stopped to think about the dignity that was in that. I just thought about cultural community and our natural way to live with one another as we live in the circle, and we want to make sure everybody does eat. So I never even stopped to think about the difference between the linear world, the Western world that puts you in a line, versus aligning everyone and bringing that dignity to the door. And so it's so critical that you all thought of that and that you've done that. So now, have you seen a shift as you are breaking into springing forward? Have you seen a shift in that? Have those numbers of people asking the questions kind of calmed down? And are people now saying, well, maybe can I come help? Can I volunteer? Is that something that y'all do at Soul Fire Farm?
We do. In fact, we have a volunteer day tomorrow. Some people are getting a little nervous because there is snow in the forecast. But you know, us as farmers, we're out there. We got to do what we got to do.
Push on. This is that time.
So
We got to
I
get it.
hope that they see what joy actually comes from not hiding from the earth in all her glorious formations, but instead dressing appropriately and being out there with the wind, the rain, the snow. It's actually very empowering and very liberating to be released from that fear. But yes, I do not think, I am praying that this is not a passing fad, that in fact we are entering into a new normal as Black people where, you know, as we mentioned, as we were getting ready for this conversation, you know, there is a lot of trauma associated with the land. So there's no way, as Chris Bolden Newsom would say, the land was the scene of the crime. So there's no way you could go through the slavery, the sharecropping, the tenant farming, the convict leasing, the white supremacist violence against landowners. You can't go through all that and not have some sort of visceral reaction to the land. We see that where people are like, I don't know, dirt, bugs, sweat, cotton, you know, bent over. I just don't know about that. But I think that we are bit by bit learning that the lands, while it was a scene of the crime, was never the criminal. And in fact, was the source of our strength, and reclaiming the dignity, which is why I was attracted to come to your talk in the first place, is because I have met so few or heard of so few people who talked about our relationship to land through a lens of dignity, belonging, and sovereignty, instead of simply in relationship to the harm that happened on the land. And I was so inspired by that. I was like, I need to go meet Queen Quet and see what is happening there, what the wisdom is there.
That was wonderful. And that's why you were unforgettable. That audience was unforgettable. I mean, that night was just such a blessing. It felt like a reunion, you know, even though it was chilly. It was warm in there because of the love that was shared and the honesty and the openness and the dialogues and the conversations. And that's one of the things that's been interesting to me as I journey to other places, to urban places in particular, where people only address the trauma that you mentioned. That once people said to me, there was this plethora of things across America called community gardens. I was like, so what y'all growing? Y'all growing plants and flowers? And they were like, oh, no, we growing food and stuff. I was like, okay, because where I'm from, we farm, we don't garden. So when we say gardening, then there's some little, y'all talking about little boxes? And they were like, yes. And people had turned, you know, areas that had actually been just places of rumble in the midst of the community, like between two people's homes or in the midst of the projects. There was just an area that looked like somebody had just dropped a bomb on it. They had gotten out there and cleaned up those lots and now brought in tillers and started tilling the land. And I'll never forget, I was brought to Chicago to talk to the brothers and sisters to hopefully inspire them. Like you said, you got inspired when you heard me, because these brothers and sisters could not get folks to let their children learn how to farm in the community gardens. They did not want their children out there because these were people who their parents and grandparents had ran northward because of sharecropping in the deep south. See, we had always been landowners after, like I said, during enslavement and forward in the Gullah Geechee Nation. So we had a very minimal amount of sharecropping on Edisto Island. So everybody here doesn't have that harshness that they attach to it as a brutal thing, as a scene of a crime. We see it as a place of nurturing. We see it as Mother Earth. She's nurturing us. So when this brother said to me, well, we can't get people to come volunteer, they'll let their children come after school for us to teach them. I said, why wouldn't they? Then I said, what you gonna do with the food? They said, that's the point. The children would be able to take the food home to eat because there's a food desert. The only vegetable they ever see, they think ketchup's a vegetable. They think stuff in a can, is a vegetable. And we wanted this here in the community, but the parents don't want to be out here because they said, you're putting our children in slavery again. That was like someone had punched me in my chest. And I was like, what are you saying? Do these people really realize what slavery was and how brutal it is? I said, please don't tell me you're saying Black people said that. He said, yes, ma'am, they did. And they've said it to my wife and I numerous times. So that's why we need you to come to Chicago, do a keynote address for the people so that they would realize the value of having land or having at least a little plot, a little box where you can feed yourself from it. And interestingly enough, we had that conversation 1 year, and about a year, 2 years later, when he brought me to the conference, by that point, they wanted me to talk about disaster preparedness. Now, none of us knew at that time how valuable talking about food security and talking about being secure and preparing ahead was going to mean, because here we are now in the midst of a pandemic, done been in one for a whole year. If you weren't prepared, and who really could prepare for this one, all right, what would you have in place? So now if you were insecure and you were seeing land as that thing, like you said, the scene of a crime, and you were still thinking you would feel that trauma, well, you got to see it now as a place that's been cleansed, a place that's always been a place of nurturing, that's always been the place that feeds you. You just have to be embraced by Mother Earth for her to feed you. And so that's the thing. That brown tone is in the soil for a reason. All right. And so when we also look deeper, yes, in it is also some blood, some sweat, and some tears. But that pulsation of that DNA can bring back a collective consciousness of the PowerPoints, the healing, the shouting, and all that good stuff. The urban thing where we heal ourselves with, and all of that will come out this your land. So we have to continue to take that stand. We have to continue to heal, just heal every generation by bringing back the collective consciousness of the things that you and I do, and that our founding farmers, our mothers, mothers, our great grandmothers felt every time they stuck their hands in the sand, whether they were making pottery, like what they call around here colonial ware, or they were actually planting some seeds. And so let's talk about that, because even in your book, you give step by step things about planting seeds and caring for it, and really a guide for that person who could have saved time calling you. They should have bought the book and whatnot, and they learn a whole lot. What made you decide to do a book called Farming While Black? Was it the same thing that you and I have just articulated?
Absolutely. I mean, I think about, so the book is to honor our ancestral grandmothers who braided seeds in their hair before being forced onto those transatlantic ships, right? And so I think of the book as having three strands of a braid. So the one strand is what we've been talking about. What is that noble agrarian legacy? We need to know that the Ovambo people came up with raised beds, that Cleopatra came up with composting, right? We need to know that the folks in Nigeria are the ones who gave us what is now dubbed permaculture. So that needed to be there, that there is this historical legacy.
Yes.
The other strand, as you mentioned, was highly practical. how far apart do you put a carrot? How do you store
Right.
things, cook them, marketing plans? And this was because I I didn't want to be gatekeeping the curriculum that we have at Soulfire when we do our farmer training programs, because we have a waiting list. I said, let me organize this curriculum, but put it in a book so anybody can pick it up for $20, $30 and
Mm,
see everything that we have learned about growing in this climate
mhm.
through a culturally relevant lens. And then
That-
the third strand of the braid was hopefully fun anecdotal stories about starting Soulfire to demystify a little bit. There was nothing magic about this. I mean, there's everything magic about all our places,
yes, it
but
is.
so to speak, it was just the diligent day-to-day hard work year after year that resulted in this. It didn't just fall from the sky. The land didn't have any buildings on it. We had to build them. The soil was degraded. We had to heal it. We
Mhm,
raise our children here. Our babies' fingerprints are in this plaster that they
mhm.
help do. So I wanted to let folks in a little bit, because I think sometimes um, we disempower ourselves by just looking at what other people have done and think that somehow it landed from outer space. But when you
Right.
can see step by step what it took, you could imagine yourself, oh, I could do that. I could see how I'd have my teaching job on the side, and on the weekends I would dig a foundation and go back and forth, you know.
Mhm.
So that was the hope, that it would inspire people, and also honestly let people in that it's not easy. There is
That's
a
the big one. It's not easy, right? That's the big one. It's not easy, right? And it's funny you said that, because that's what I've said over and over this year. I said, I cannot wait to watch Facebook this year. And someone said, why, Queen? I said, because last year I had all these newfound farmers all over there, showing off that they planting something, got their little raised bed, or got their little rake, or their little hoe, their little shovel, and they showing they got their little seeds or whatever. And I said, I want to know how many still on sustain that this year, because this ain't easy. I say farming is not for the faint at heart. Okay. So definitely you mentioned having to heal the land. I'm working on a section of our property that, like I say, we have been on this property since, we know, at least back to the 1800s during the
wow,
plantation
that is
era.
powerful.
Yes. And so we know, because the deed is from that era, and my great great grandfather and his wife were here, and they were working it enslaved, and they bought it to keep. And so we have acres and acres where we are, and then on the other side. And so on both sides of my family, we have this land. Well, on one side of my family, they're big on fishing. They could farm, they did do that, but fishing was the primary thing. On the other side, farming and fishing kind of balanced out. But there's a section of the land that when I asked my mother about it, I said, why? If I put stuff over there, it must be a bad spirit, because that area don't grow, and all the rest of it. And she would talk about how her father and them had to build it up, and how they had to work on his kids. Then I spoke to my cousin, who's the same, we're in the same generation and family, but she's older than me. And she talked about her dad, my uncle, and how they used to be out there as little kids, because he saw himself building up. I said, okay, so that's why my mama called that thing poor land. I said that section is just like that. So now I'm the one this year trying to build it up so that I don't have plants this high when they're supposed to be as high as what you see in the picture. And that section of the field and the rest of the field is great. But I found that as you work to heal the land heals you. Do you
Mm-hmm.
feel the same way?
Absolutely. And so I'll tell you personally how this lands for me, the healing of land, but also what I observe. So for me personally, it's been a rough year, as it has for so many people. Being a frontline worker, trying to take care of community, watching the way that the stress impacts folks, and they're going for each other.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of community conflict to navigate, people, losing their jobs. It's
Yeah.
just a stressful year. And I found as soon as spring came and I was able to get back out on the land more, so today I was moving rocks, fixing the stream crossing. Yesterday we were unloading straw, and just mundane tasks. But the physical contact with the land, I really believe she just sucks all that yuck right out of us and composts it and
The
gives it right back to
toxins
us.
right on out.
I feel it. I
Yes.
feel the transformation, the lightness in my heart, the lightness in my spirit. And all I did was go out and work the land. I didn't do any fancy rituals or nothing, right? Even though I like my fancy rituals too. And I witnessed this with people who come to the farm. And
Me too.
at first it would confuse me, because I'd run this whole program on farming science, and I do a killer soil chemistry class, and in the evaluations, nobody's talking about any of
Mm.
that stuff. They're talking about now I see what's possible in my own life. Now I'm ready to put down the bottle. Now I'm ready to leave a toxic marriage. Now I'm ready to leave a dead end job. I feel healed. I feel renewed. I feel connected to something bigger than myself. They don't say nothing about soil chemistry, because what the land
Right.
does is she's been waiting for us to come home, waiting for the bare feet of her children on her back. And she just is giving us all the love that she's been holding for generations and wanting to return to us. And I see thousands of people come on this land every year, and that transformation is consistent with the folks who come. Even if they come on a snowy day and they think they're going to be miserable, they will find this expansive, unimaginable joy at finally being home again on the earth.
Yes, yes, yes. And being embraced, like I mentioned, just let mama hold you for a minute. Just let mama hold you. So
Okay.
tell me this, you just mentioned that you do these workshops, and because I'm a scientist too, once you say chemistry, I was having all kind of flashbacks to chemistry class and how my chemistry professor wanted me to be a chemist because I made straight A's and all of that. And so when you said that, I want to know more about that. What is it that you do there? Do people just come to the farm to buy food? It doesn't sound like it. It sounds like you can actually come there and get full-blown education about the land in the scientific way, and then you can just feel it or let Mother Earth feel you. So how do you do that? What actually goes on at Soulfire Farm?
Well, we do have a lot of things going on, but I would say our most popular program is our week-long farming immersion for Black and brown growers, where folks come for a week. They live, camp out, live on the farm. We integrate them into farm life, and we teach classes throughout the day on specific topics that range from, as I mentioned, soil chemistry to developing your marketing plan, to how to select the right tools for the scale of your operation. We have a history classes on the legacy of Black and brown farmers, get to know you, people sharing music, people sharing stories. So it's a full program. You know, we get up at 6 in the morning, we're not to bed till 10 at night, a full program immersion, as it says. And that's probably the most popular. We run several of those every year, and there's a waiting list. But we also have youth visits. We have a youth camp called Liberation on Lands. We have these one-day workshops on special topics like beekeeping or carpentry. And of course, like everybody in the pandemic, we've increasingly done some of these online. So there's the webinar series where you get zoomed in to what we're doing on the land, and you can see some of these topics as well. We have tours, we have volunteer days twice a month where people can come out, and everything you register through our website. Especially in COVID, it's no drop-ins. Everyone registers. They have to go through the health screening process in order to come. But it's pretty bustling from April through November, and then in the wintertime, which gets very cold up here, you know, is when we concentrate more on the online program and the writing and public speaking and things like that.
Awesome. So that now tells me why you also have something in this book that I love, that I found. That's the Black Child's Pledge by Sister Shirley Williams, that was in the Black Panther newsletter back in 1968, for your time. I pledge allegiance to my Black people. I pledge to develop my mind and body to the greatest extent possible. I will learn all that I can in order to give my best to my people in their struggle for liberation. I will keep myself physically fit, building a strong body from drugs and other substances, that just free from drugs and other substances that weaken me and make me less capable of protecting myself, my family, and my Black brothers and sisters. I will unselfishly share my knowledge and understanding with them in order to bring about change more quickly. I will discipline myself to direct my energies thoughtfully and constructively rather than wasting them in idle hatred. I will train myself never to hurt or allow others to harm Black brothers and sisters, for I recognize that we need every Black man, woman, and child to be physically, mentally, and psychologically strong. These principles I pledge to practice daily and to teach them to others in order to unite my people. Now, if I must say so to myself, if this were a class, because you know I'm a teacher too, I'm a professor at heart, I would give you an A for living up to this pledge today. I think this whole conversation is the embodiment of this pledge today. I think that Sister Williams would be proud to know that you came along and that you were living out this pledge in the work you do, not just physically on the farm with all the people that come to you, the thousands of people you probably host a year like I do here, but also just in your walk in life. Of all the things you could have put on a page, why did you pick that? What made you put that on a page for anybody to read? What was behind that?
You know, I haven't read that in a minute, and you just reading that out loud now gave me the chills. And my first thought in response to your question about why put the Black Child Pledge is because I think I needed to hear you read it right now to remind us as Black people what we're supposed to be up to. So the thing that stood out to me in this moment is I promise not to harm any or allow others to harm any other Black person, that we all deserve to be well in mind, body, and spirit. And I think something that the pandemic has done, the pandemic has done, is has stressed some people to the breaking point where they forgot about this and are doing what we call lateral violence, harming one another in movement spaces, harming one another in community instead of sticking together in unity to work against the common threat, which is white supremacist capitalism, which is settler colonialism. It is not each other. It is not each other. It is not each other. We are brothers and sisters. Absolutely. So I think that was what my heart needed to speak in the moment. But the reason at the time that I put that in is because if we don't focus on our children and what we're passing on to our children, we have let our ancestors down. Because what they did is they didn't give up on us, even facing circumstances many of us cannot imagine. So if we get so self-absorbed that we forget about the next generation, then we have failed them in their legacy. And that's why we do youth programs. That's why we teach the young people to love themselves and one another, to love the earth, to belong. You know, my own children, Nashima and Emmett, they grew up around this and they know how to build their own house. They know how to grow their own food. They know how to facilitate a group. They know how to cook for 30 people. Those are the types of things we need to be passing down to our children, the frame of mind, but also the skills with our own hands, so that they are not then reliant on this corporate system that wants to destroy them, but they can say, oh, no, I'm not eating that food that you're trying to kill me with, because I have my garden right here and I'm gonna eat this food, right? Yeah. I'm not gonna live in that toxic house you're trying to put me in, because I built this right here with my family, for my family, and I'm gonna live in this. So that is why I put that in. I think we need to be investing in our youth in ways that we might not have imagined we need to invest in our youth, right?
Yes, absolutely. I'm with you on that 100%. And it's critical that we recognize that if there's food security, there's food insecurity. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction along the same line. So when you talk about the weaponry of food, right? Foods can heal, foods can kill. You can overeat and kill yourself, or you could starve to death from malnutrition because you don't have enough to eat, or you don't have proper nutrients. And hence we go back to those food deserts and now greening those places and those spaces, and that being the thing that empowers our children so that they can empower our children's children's children to be able to do the same thing, to take this stand for land, to hold on to Mother Earth, to have it nurture us, have her nurture us, and us nurture her. And so that we get nourishment. There's that cycle again. Everything, like I say, in African cosmology and indigenous cosmology is circular. It's not linear. The Western world is linear. And when I think about doing that, I think about when I got to hold my pistol as a landowner, right? You know, I think about a sword. I think about stuff just coming straight out. But what's coming back? And in the circle, you got to think about what you put out there. It comes back too, hopefully gaining momentum. And I'm praying that all of these words of this pledge that speak to us being in physical shape for this fight to remain secure, that and that mental shape, that spiritual balance and harmony is the centering of our circle as Black people around the world, much less in these microcosms of the African diaspora and the Gullah Geechee diaspora, that, like you said, that we get the presence of mind to recognize I'm not your enemy, I'm your family. So if all the family is here in this circle on this family compound, if you harm one, you're harming us all. And so you need not be the one causing the harm, you see? And so when we put out positive energy, it always works its way back. It gains momentum. But the same thing happens when you put out negative. That which ye sow, ye shall also reap. It is true in literal farming, and it's true in spiritual farming. And so if you were to say to another sister who's hearing this broadcast today that said, wow, y'all made some points, but I ain't never went outdoors too much, because the same thing you said at the beginning. I ain't trying to be out there in no snow. I ain't trying to be out there if it's too hot. I don't like no bugs. I mean, y'all talk about snakes and raccoons and even deer. I don't know but that. I don't know but going outside. I hear y'all though. I'd like to have my own food. I'd like to know where it comes from. I'd like to know what is going into it. I'd like to know it's actual food and not a food-like substance or GMO material. I don't want anything genetically modified that they just call an organism, no longer call it food. I don't really want it, but why can't I just buy it from you? Why I gotta go outside? Like, how much you try to inspire that sister to come on with us outside. Come on out.
It is such a good question. And I will say, Queen Quet, I've been surprised by how little convincing I have to do. But for the people who are reluctant, I always say it's okay to start small. And I tell this story of my sister Naima. We were going to Haiti, which is our maternal ancestral homeland, to do some work with farmers there. We've been doing since the earthquake of 2010, going every year. And we get to the place where we're staying, and she pulls out a glass jar and some mung bean seeds and starts rinsing them. I was like, what you doing? She said, oh, I'm just growing my little garden of mung bean sprouts right here by my bed. Everywhere I go, I have to be growing something. Everywhere I go, I need to have some fresh greens. And I got to thinking, you could have a garden in a jar just like that. If that's all that you are ready for right now, you could do that. Or you could get a tray, some takeout container, put some soil in it and sprinkle some greens and have some microgreens and on your window. Start there. And I guarantee you're going to fall in love with being in collaboration with non-human brothers and sisters in the form of plants. And you're going to say, well, maybe 4 pots, maybe 10 pots, maybe a garden bed, maybe, right? But start with the jar of seeds and see how the earth calls you home bit by bit.
Yes. It's funny that when you started saying, and then this much more, and then this much more, I'm just picturing my field that last year I was like, look here, I'm planting these 7 to 9 rows. I ain't doing no more. Now this year I already done planted past 9 rows. I probably got 18 rows, and I told my mother the other day, I said, look here, if they stop messing around, this weather talk, we're gonna get cold again. All I got to do, throw my minerals in there, and I done. And she said, oh yeah. And what all I say, every row is planted this year. And that's more than a half an acre that I planted by myself this time, because these other folks ain't show up when I was ready. So I went on, got the thing done. So I'm just waiting on the maid. Yeah. And so it was so interesting when you said that. I was like, I was picturing my field that's right outside this wall here in my head of how many rows I ended up doing for the same thing you said, that do this little bit, and then it becomes 2, and then let's 10, and then maybe we'll do 20. But no, I ain't gonna do no more than 20. Next thing's 25. So
I'll tell you, Queen, the farm that I trained on, Many Hands Organic Farm in Massachusetts, I swear every year since the 90s when I was working there, the owner of the farm would be like, oh yeah, next year I'm gonna scale it back, or next year I'm gonna retire, it's too much. And every year it increased, and now they're in their 70s, it's still increasing.
Sound like my mom. That sound like my mom. You sure my mom wasn't up there with you? It sounded like my mom.
Exactly.
And she always
Go
corrected,
ahead.
"This my last year." Ain't your last year. Because even now, when we're out there actually the ones physically doing the labor, trust me, she the foreman. She be like, she the forewoman. Why y'all do that? Why you ain't do? You know, you missed this one right here. Come on back. See that? I'm like, why aren't you going back inside? We gonna leave the food prep to you. You handle that part. I got this part out here now. You know, so I go and I tease all the time, like, don't tell me what to do. You get on out there and harvest. She said, I done my share. And I ain't mad at her up in here. So definitely, Sister Leia, you have done your share with this book, Farming While Black. Y'all make sure y'all go ahead now. Just because her last name Pennyman, it gonna cost you more than a penny now. The book costs more than a penny. Don't get cute on us. Don't get cute. All right. But it's worth the investment. So all this knowledge, and if you're sitting there thinking, man, whoa, I wish I could learn more. Here it is. This is a lot more than we could even cover in the time that we have together here, because both of us got our fields to go back in and things like that anyway. We won't get outside. We won't turn off these devices. So definitely, we want you to make sure to get this book and tell them, where can they find this? Where would be the ideal place and space to get theirs? Because see, I got mine from the author, so I ain't mad, but you know what I'm saying.
Well, you have options because Farming While Black is probably available in your library. So if you don't want to buy it, you could check it out or tell your library to get it. It's also at independent bookstores, at chain bookstores, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, and you can buy it from the Soulfire Farm website on our online store. So, and all those proceeds go to support our program. So check it out, and I do hope that you enjoy the book. My daughter took all the photos. That's
Excellent.
the best part.
She did a great job. So yeah, tell them soulfirefarm.org. Is that correct?
That's correct. And you can follow us on social media, Soulfire Farm, all one word. We're on all the platforms except TikTok because I don't understand that one yet, but maybe one day.
I ain't with it. Just forget it, as the song said. But yeah, definitely soulfirefarm.org. Now, listen, I agree with Sister Leia. It's the same thing for me. If you go to gullahgeechee.biz, gullahgeechee.biz, all the money going to we. We ain't like for she up all the money with the other rest of people. So I encourage you, if you're going to buy the book, if you want to sign up for workshops, do it all at one time. And that way, let the funds come right back into the farm. That helps with the sustainability of making sure that we don't just have Black women founding farmers, but we have women that sustain these farms for future generations. Just as I've mentioned that my four mothers were on those deeds, their names are on those deeds with those husbands, because they also put money into purchasing the land and holding on to it. And you notice I mentioned about protecting the land too. Trust me, they know how to hold it down. That's how I learned. Okay. So definitely it's important that we recognize that. A lot of times we go to the corporate entities and then we say, well, we're anti, the things that they do in the capitalistic society, but then you go spend the money with them and you don't spend the money directly with those who want to liberate you. And we want to liberate your minds, your bodies, your souls. It's time to get balanced. And so now is the perfect time to do it. This says, did we just pass the equinox? That's when you're supposed to plant those things that you want. We're moving toward this weekend. For many, this will be Resurrection Sunday. This is Holy Week. This is the time to plant those seeds of positivity so that they will grow. Plant those seeds of your vision so that they will grow, that they can be raised up. This is that time that everything is in alignment in the universe that can help you navigate where you want to be. But you got to plant the seed first to take you on the next part of your journey. So, Sister Leia, any more words of inspiration for the family before we sign off for the day?
Well, I don't think I can top anything that you say, Queen, but I will say that I really believe that the earth loves us back. And the earth, the sacred Mother Earth, has been missing us and is just ready to give us a warm embrace and nourishment and healing. And I encourage you, whether it is the jar of sprouts or the one tree that you take care of on your block or your very first garden plot, please get out there and let her embrace you, because she has so much wisdom to offer. And if you learn to tune your ear to that, it will benefit you not just in terms of your physical nourishment, but in terms of your spiritual healing, your emotional healing, your sense of belonging and community. The earth is calling you home.
Hmm. And truly gonna feed you some soul food. That's
Ashe.
what we want to give you. Ashe, Ashe. It has been such a blessing having my sister you again today and thing like that. First, I thought, I said, great God, I ain't gonna get that gal but come out the field. Then I thought about myself, oh yeah, he hot down, yeah, he cold up there. She should be inside. So she should be able to do this. And then she said, well, the snow is breaking. Now they threatening to bring the snow back. But that's okay. Mama Earth will change her mind. She might need us to stay inside a little while longer. Sit down and listen to your mama. So definitely, if you listen to Mother Earth, there's so much that would feed your soul. It's so true. And so definitely every day I am blessed and honored to walk this land that is part of our legacy here in the Gullah Geechee Nation. And I'm so appreciative of that and appreciative of all of you who watch Zooming in on sustainability, but even more so, those who become members of the Gullah Geechee Sea Island Coalition. So when you hear us talking about Black land ownership and empowerment from it, people around the world that support it are members. So you can be members or supporters. It doesn't matter where you live in the world. Just go to gullahgeechee.net. Gullahgeechee.net, and Gullah is G-U-L-L-A-H. Geechee is Geechee.net. And also, if you want to get any books and things about Gullah Geechee's history and our legacy, as well as items from here, go to gullahgeechee.biz. Gullahgeechee.biz. Ain't a no I in Geechee if it a we. Okay? And so here it is, that here in the Gullah Geechee Nation, if you want to learn more about our stand for land, please, we have a GoFundMe page, which is the Gullah Geechee Land and Legacy Fund. People can also donate to it via Cash App to $ Gullah Geechee Nation, $ Gullah Geechee Nation, or go to GoFundMe, type in Gullah Geechee Land and Legacy Fund. And you can always follow the GullahGeecheeNation.com page. And we're also on Facebook as Gullah Geechee Nation. But GullahGeecheeNation.com will keep you apprised of other broadcasts, other protests, other mechanisms by which to hold on to land, and also these workshops where we come out in these sacred gardens here on the Sea Islands, one with the other, with Mother Earth, with God, in the midst of all that we do, taking our hands and dipping it into that soil that our ancestors had the opportunity to touch too. Trust me, when you have that chance to do that, and that energy comes in, all it will ever do is empower you. So I pray that you will continue to stay healthy, to be nurtured, to be blessed, not stressed, wherever Hana might be. Oh, we pray Hana have good health, have love, have safety. This year the Queen Quet, head upon the body of the Gullah Geechee Nation. I'm so glad it, Hana Chilla, take this time out, but spend a little bit of time with we, celebrating who we be, and especially, that Black woman, what a farm, and the one that found us for all of we farmers. I'm so glad that we had this your time again today. And if you want to watch the next broadcast of this your show, follow gullahgeechee.tv. Subscribe right on for free, and you'll get it more. But what going on? But zooming in on sustainability. Peace, blessings, and love, everybody.
Peace and blessings, fam.